Welcome to 2022. We are back with the Street Scene Power Hour podcast. Our host, Rick Guerrera, who is fresh off vacation. No.
The boss gave me a week off. So
now hold on a
New
minute.
Year.
Larry Ward is with us also, and he went somewhere earlier. Didn't you? Look forward.
Oh yeah. Last time we saw him.
Yeah, we did look for the Packard motorcycle show. We actually recorded down at the National Packard Museum. So Larry and Rick were hosting that show, and it will be on YouTube and Armstrong Channel 100 very soon here within the next week. So it's almost finished. Just got the editing done. So
and Larry ran out of there. Remember, he had to go somewhere.
Yeah, he had to run across the country or something. I don't know what he was doing. So we want to welcome our very special guest, Samantha Vallish. She is the assistant parts manager at State 8 Motorcycles. And welcome to the Street Scene Power Hour podcast.
Hi, everyone.
Sam.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So Larry, you kind of set up all this. We're happy to have Samantha with us. And take it away, Larry.
Well, I'd like to welcome Sam to the Armstrong Street Scene Power Hour. It's the first show of 2022. And what better person to have than a young lady who is getting pretty well known, not only in the parts arena, but also in the motocross off-road racing arena. So Sam, let's first of all, let's talk about all the different things that you're involved. And we would start off with not being sexist, but it's kind of like people would think of it being a guy's world, being a parts manager. And I laugh because I told Greg, I go, most of those guys come to Sam and ask her questions on, hey, what's his fit? How does this work? What do you know about that? So Sam, give us a little bit of your background. First of all, let's talk about growing up. I know you come from a dad that kind of helped you get into this stuff. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, my dad started me relatively young. I was around 10, I want to say. And we started on mini bikes, of course. So he raced since the 70s until about the 90s. And then he broke his ankle and took some time off. But he started getting back into it. And I would follow him to the races. And I would basically be his little pit girl. And whatever dad needed, he got. So eventually I just decided, if there's other people doing this, then I can do this. And in relation to the women, I actually saw a girl rider. And I was like, well, if she can do it, then I should be able to do it. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And, he bought me a bike and we got the gear and, we did the whole duo setup and, all the money out of his wallet came. So that's just, how it goes when you come to the racing world. It definitely eats your wallet a little bit, but you got to start somewhere.
Well, we've got a picture of your dad up there along with your racing outfit immediately to your left shoulder. And that's one of Samantha 21V. So was that at the Piston Power Show?
Yes. Yep. Up at the IX Center.
Yeah, I remember. I think that's the first time I interviewed you. And
it was
3 or 4 or 5 years ago. But certainly that's a terrific view of that. So what age did you formally start trying to get competitive and race?
Probably about 10. As soon as I seen it, I was racing and that was pretty much it. So I'd say it was, I think, around 9 or 10 years old.
Look at that balance. Oh my.
Do you race
That's my style?
Yeah.
Do you race like that too? You just stand on the motorcycle and just go?
I actually have. I've actually had my hands on the bar and then I stand on the seat.
I was kidding, and you did do it.
I just like to be a crowd pleaser. I like to get involved with that stuff.
Well, Sam, let me ask this. That first bike that you raced, do you recall what it was?
Yeah, actually, I have one. It's actually in my house. It's a Tomos TX50. It's a little 2-speed automatic 2-stroke. So it's very oddball. Yeah, made in Italy, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I've got a Tomos Targa LX that I have for my granddaughter, and it's over in their garage. And it's, like I said, it's 2-speed. In fact, I rode a Tomos, but it was called a Street Mate. It was a 50cc Street Mate. And that's where I set the Lake Erie Loop record for the moped, 24 hours and 3 minutes around Lake Erie on a moped.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah,
have
I
to
know.
now we're looking at a picture, and is this
Yeah.
is that the bike that you're talking about, or is that
No,
no?
that's
No,
the
there's
RB
another
90.
photo in there that's like me kind of on the side. It's like an older photo, and then there's like a group of
Oh,
kids.
you know what? Yeah, let me get that one. But we're looking at it. She sent some pictures over. So if you're listening to the podcast and you want to see some of Sam's pictures, make sure you check out the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel YouTube page. This will be broadcast on YouTube and of course Armstrong Channel 100. So yeah, and let me pull this picture up here. See if I can get this to go and. Yeah, there it's
Yeah.
There it is.
That's we're talking about everybody seems like when they were younger had a Honda CT70. We were talking about that down at the Packard Museum, and
Yep.
it's not a CT70, but Sam did have her first one bike there, obviously.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'll tell you what, they're hard to find those.
Oh, they are. I found it a couple years ago, and I sold the original one. I found mine, same model, and then I restored it and then put it in my office here at home just to have it.
Well, you gotta love a young lady that's got a Penton sitting behind her, and that one that she has is special. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, Sam, you as a 10-year-old, you're racing entry-level 2-speed automatic stuff. When did you first decide that, okay, I like this dirt, I like this go fast stuff, and I like all the guys that don't like me because I'm beating them. So what was the next step up for you in your racing career? And what did you ride?
I started out with that 50, and then I went to a 110, and then a 125 trail bike, and then a 140 trail bike. And then I finally moved to, I know I felt bad for my dad having to grow like crazy and get these bigger bikes every, couple years. But I think when I was around 15, I want to say, I moved to like a KDX 200 two-stroke and started with the big boys.
Well, this is a very, very special picture. This is Sam, and to her immediate right is Jack Penton, 6-time gold medalist in the International 6-day trials, which is a big, big thing. And then in front of them is Mr. John Penton, the legend, most iconic figure in motorcycling. And to his left is your father.
With the crazy hair.
Yeah.
The race day hair.
Uh-huh.
Race day hair. What a great picture, because I'll tell you what, John Penton is a legend, and not only getting the motorcycles that come overseas and then become Pentons. And there's a book out that's called, I think, the John Penton Autobiography.
Yeah.
It's just a terrific book, and I'd encourage everybody to get it. So when was your first foray, into real big bikes, the ones that have like 250s, or a 125, but high performance, 5-speed manual clutches, stuff like that? When was the first, what I call bigger bike, that like an RM 125, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, after my KDX at about 15, that was a 200, and I think those were, I want to say, a 6-speed. It's been so long. But after that, I moved to a Husqvarna 125, a CR 125, which is a really, really nice bike. I love that bike. It was a rocket.
Yeah,
My
that's
dad
exactly
loved
right.
it probably just as much as I did. He would, ride it in the backyard, and he was just so excited. He was tickled pink. But and then after that, I went to more of the 250s. I went to a 250 4-stroke. I had that for a while, and then hopped back to a 125 because I always just like the 2-strokes. And then recently purchased a 250. So I've just been back and forth with 125 and 250. And, I'm like, if you can have one of each, that's the most perfect world, because every track's different and trails are so different.
Yeah.
So the more the merrier.
Now, as you're moving up, what disciplines have you run, and which do you like and why?
For displacements, you mean?
No, discipline, like, are you more into the enduro cross country? Are you more into motocross? That's the discipline. And then
Gotcha.
Why did you pick that?
I always grew up cross country, so we always did hare scrambles.
Okay.
I think my dad was kind of the dad that would scare me with motocross, because he, didn't want it to happen. He's like, stay in the woods, not in the air.
Yeah.
So, hare scrambles were always my thing. I always say I don't fly very well. I like the ground. So I've always been, in that wood scene.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one. Now, let's detail what exactly a hare scramble is. Because back in the day, I didn't run many because I don't really like off-road, but I do recall a couple, and they're much different. We go down a hill, through a creek, up a hill. Now a lot of it is timed and other things. So tell us a little bit about the races that you run, what they're like.
Yeah, every track is different and every state's different, whether you're sand, mud, clay, all that stuff. But the majority, like you said, going through hills, creeks, rivers, things like that, to anything that's wide open, to something that's really technical, that's, the trees are the same width as your bars and you're shimmying through, and things like that. So it does depend on the area, the state. But I know, from being told previously in these hare scrambles that they have become more, I would say, tight and technical. But, like I said, just kind of depends on the place.
A lot of times now I've noticed since I've been following it, when I first got hooked up with the Wenzels, is that these are timed events, like 2 hours plus 1 lap kind of thing. Have you run those kind of events?
Yeah, most of my hare scrambles, if you're racing vintage, older stuff is usually an hour, like 45 minutes to an hour. And then the modern stuff that we've been doing is always about 2 hours. So yeah, nothing timed in a sense of like an enduro, but yeah, you have a 2-hour whole length, to get as many laps in as you can.
That to me seems so hard. I mean, you've got to be you got to be your age.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a blast for 2 hours plus 1 lap. And I'll tell you what, I've seen some of the guys that I've interviewed on the radio that are in their mid to late 40s. And I'm like, how in the heck do you? And it's hard on the bike. I mean, you're talking going as hard as you can for 2 hours plus 1 lap. So, now tell us about some of the different venues that you've raced at during your career. Like, Mid-Ohio.
I would say most of the stuff, like I did some GNCCs. Me and my dad did those for a while. Those are East Coast based for modern bikes. But honestly, the vintage stuff is what's really gotten me to a wider perimeter, I would say. This picture, for example, was down in Alabama, which if you've never been to the, Barber Museum, it is the place to go. It is like heaven on earth. I mean, it's beautiful paved roads. Their racetrack is amazing. Their museum is bizarre. It's the craziest place. So I did go there and I absolutely love that. Of course, Ohio, Pennsylvania, like I said, mostly more East Coast stuff. But yeah, the vintage stuff can get you pretty much anywhere you want to go.
The one year that the 2 things I can tell you about Barber, well, 3, Johnny Bova's wedding, Johnny Bova's wedding, where it was a VIP only invitation at the Barber, and they threw out a big spread there. The chance to hang out with Eric Bill on what they call the Midnight Moon series, where it's a VIP invitation because it belonged in radio. I horned my way in there. And also I've taken a couple laps on that track, and you can really, especially on that back straightaway by the museum, you can carry some pretty good speed there. So it's a whole lot of fun. And I think the 4th member is when Bob Wenzel went down there, competed into vintage class with his TY 250 and knocked the crap out of everybody. And then they changed the rules. And Bob won the whole thing. And they're like, how does this northern boy come down and best these southern guys? And so it was a little testy. They weren't.
Good job, Bob.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I call him board member Bob, kind of thing. But and then here is one of the most iconic photos of Sam racing. This particular photo, I think, was featured on one of the vintage motorcycle magazines, wasn't it?
It was a different one. Similar though, but that one was actually at Barber. Barber actually, ironically, that was the only year that John Penton was actual like mark of that event. And that was the year we ended up going, and they actually took my photo, kind of similar of a jump like that, and put it on their newsletter. And I didn't even know until I got it in the mail, and I was like, this is awesome. So I was very, very stoked. This one's actually at Mid-Ohio, that picture that was shown up. That was at the Vintage Days, event.
Okay.
They have for 3 days.
And a lot of these pictures are actually her getting some air on the bike. So, they're really cool shots. So again, take a look on the YouTube broadcast to see the pictures when we get
So
up.
Sam, what I'm going to talk to you about now is it kind of one delves into the other. As a parts manager at State 8, you're responsible for not only understanding and having knowledge when somebody comes to you about their bike, to be able to look up the proper parts, maybe to educate them on why you suggest this rather than that. So a parts manager is a very big thing, but I think you come by it naturally because your chosen weapon of choice for motorcycling has been the Penton sport cycles. Now, we'll go into a very brief history of the Penton sports cycles. John Penton, and I can't pronounce the guy's name that was with KTM, Truckle Punson or something, but he actually went over there, shook his hand, and I'm making this very, very brief, but they decided to import to John these motorcycles, which John called Penton cycles. And of course, John had, I think, 2 or 3 sons, and they were all very, very good motorcyclists. So they would get the bikes, they would tear the bikes completely apart. They'd put them all back together, making sure everything is absolutely correct, and then go out and win championships in America with them. Well, that became a big enough business that they started creating dealerships throughout the United States, and the rest is history. The Penton sports cycles were born. One of the claim to fame with John is that he would set up clinics, he would help young riders, and he had just done a fabulous job. So there is a organization called the Penton Owners Group, POG for short. And I belong to that, Sam, Bob, a bunch of guys throughout the world. And they get together once a month. And then at Mid-Ohio, they'll have a whole big setup for the entire week. And one day out of that week, the Penton Owners Group throws a big dinner and that. So we all get together for that. So keeping a Penton motorcycle going is an arduous but fun task. Sam, this is how I think you come by that parts acumen pretty easily. Let's talk about your Penton bikes, how they were when you got them. Well, first of all, how'd you go get them? What'd you do? And then tell us about putting these things back together and being able to put them together well enough that you can race a bike that's 30, 40 years old.
Yeah, my first pen is actually the one sitting behind me. It's a 1972 6 days, and it's a 125. And that one I actually bought off of a gentleman named Dale, who is now pretty much like a second dad. Dale's phenomenal and really kickstarted this whole vintage racing scene for me. But he sold me the bike. I took it home, and within, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes after driving from Michigan, I had it in pieces because there was a little bit of rust on the frame and it wasn't good enough. And, I just wanted to restore it to its full potential. So of course, once I did that, it obviously led to another bike, which was also from Dale, which was my race bike, which is also a 1972 model. That's a 100. And that's the bike you'll see with, me jumping and all that stuff. That's strictly a race bike. The one behind me is a show queen, but I know people hate that, but I love it. But yeah, then the race bike came along. After that was another Berkshire, which was just popped up there on the screen, which is a 1974 100. That one actually came from another POG member that you were talking about, Penton Owners Group. And that one was a barn find, and same thing, I just got my hands on it and made it pretty.
Well, let's talk about the different models of the Pentons, because they were pretty doggone unique. If Greg, we could go back to the green bike.
Sure.
Which was the Penton 6 days. Now that's a 125, but as we go through, and I'll just mention some of the things and then you can pick up from there, Sam, but you'll see that it has alloy steel fenders, not plastic. You can see that it's got a full big seat. You can see it's got a toolkit mounted on a rack. You can see that the clutch and brake levers are covered by a little covering to keep them from getting muddy. There's a number plate on it. There's a headlight and a tail light. So Sam, talk about that bike and what is the significance? Plus, it's a kickstart on the left side and it's a Sachs motor, SACH. So if you talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, most of what I own have that same motor. They ran that sex engine for quite a few years, but of course they all come with different, trim packages. Like you said, this one being more enduro based. It actually now has a speedometer on it and, a couple other things to kind of have that full enduro package.
Right.
And like you said, the alloy fenders and things like that, where, if you have plastic fenders, no headlight, all that stuff, you're, going to be more based towards your motocross side of things. But what's cool about all these bikes is being all that same body style, everything's so interchangeable. So you can really make a machine what you want it and, get it to a T of what style you're racing.
And oddly enough, these and correct me, Sam, if I'm not right, but a Berkshire 125 has the same frame as a 250. Would that be
The
correct?
100s and the 125 share
100.
the same frame. Yes. Yeah. Same frame, same bottom end, different bore.
Larry's getting schooled. That's good.
No,
I'm
Larry.
getting schooled too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, on the models at 100s and 125s, they were called Berkshires. Why is that? Do you know? Do you have the history behind that?
I know that they basically, based all those bikes off of races, or events that they had, like the Jack Piner Enduro, and things
Right.
like that. I believe the Berkshire was an event as such, but I'm not 100% to be honest with you.
It was held in the Berkshires up in the New England area. And I think
Okay.
it was in 76 or 78.
See, now you're schooling me.
Yeah,
We're even.
Yeah, I doubt that.
Rick and
Yeah.
I are kind of sitting over here and,
Yeah.
Rick knows a little and I knew nothing. So
And I
I'm
don't
getting
much
really
about
getting
Benton's.
schooled.
Hey,
Sorry, guys.
You said these were imported. Where were they imported from?
Austria.
Austria.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yep.
Home of KTM.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
What were they called over in Austria?
They were
KTM.
KTM. Yep. And then
KTM,
John.
okay.
Yep. They were Penton and then back to KTM.
See,
Okay.
KTM didn't have a big, in the early 70s, weren't imported into here. So they brought those bikes in, Penton put his name on them and then revamped the whole bike in that. But I think they were Pentons. What was the last year, Sam, that they were called a Penton and the following year they were badged KTM? Do you remember?
I want to say 74, because there's some cross years too. Because like I have a 73 that's actually a KTM motor, and then of course like the Berkshire I have is a 74 that's still a Sachs engine. So I
Yeah.
think when they completely went, I want to say it would have been, gosh, I don't know exactly what year they would have been like full KTM, 76 maybe 75, 76.
Well, let me ask you this now, and this is part where it dovetails with being a parts manager. Tell our listeners, when you get a bike, because I've seen some of those, like that little Suzuki RV90 you had and all that. I mean, you really do a fantastic job. Tell us about what it takes for finding and sourcing the parts, the paints, and everything that you have to do to get that bike ready to go, or at least to look good anyways.
Yeah, I mean, most of what I do, I try to, when I do restorations, at least have them run. So yeah, they're show queens, but you could fire it up and ride it if you really wanted to. A lot of, trying to find these older parts, and especially anymore, this vintage scene is getting so huge that it's becoming more popular. And parts are still relatively readily available, but there's certain things on the market that are really hard to get. In the aspect of working at a dealer, I'm fortunate because on, certain things, mostly the Japanese bikes, you can dealer locate, you can find if you know the right people or a guy who knows a guy,
Right.
You can most certainly track down that stuff. But, some of this older stuff is relatively hard, even though they've made hundreds of these things.
All right. And then the resources, obviously, of the Penton Owners Group is a great resource. I know guys like Paul Danik, who I think the world of, is a good resource. He'll be able to tell you chapter and verse. Bob Wenzel's getting to be quite the collector. He's got a bunch of them all over, laying around everywhere. And I'm hoping, the good news is Bob sometimes forgets what he has. And so I may pirate one of those out of there someday and go, and I go, I didn't see that. I didn't see it.
Don't you remember the BMW you just bought like yesterday, Rick or Larry, right?
Yeah.
Remember that
The
BMW? I'm just kidding. You
The
forget bikes that you bought. So yeah, I was just trying to rack your brain. I guess it wasn't that funny, was it?
Oh.
Just take
I
one of
was-
his bikes and tell him you just bought it and bring it up to his
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I just bought, a couple months ago, I bought a 21, I call it a Himalayan. If you watch online, they're Himalayans or whatever, but I bought it off of Motozilli, Jim Iacozzelli's place, and just love that bike. It's perfect for me. It's slow, it's plodding. I can take it off-road, but don't do anything stupid or serious. So I'm,
What is
especially
it?
with the knees.
What is
It's
it?
a Royal Enfield Himalayan.
Oh, okay. That's an
Yeah, it's
English
400
bike then, yeah.
Well, it's, yeah.
Well, it used to
yes.
be English, right? Weren't they
Well,
English?
it's a new old bike,
Okay.
but it's like a BMW. The toolkit I got, I can practically take that entire bike apart with the toolkit. Like the old BMW. It's like the one I got in the garage, the 78 R100. Has a toolkit that I literally can take the motor, take everything out of that bike.
No, there's no torque spits. There's no Allen heads on those, and that's
No.
what makes them nice to work on.
Yeah, really. All right, Sam. So we were talking about the pets and that, and in your racing career, can you give us some of the highlights of your racing career? I know you're very young and you're accomplished, and over the next 10 years, you'll be able to tell us a whole lot more. But when you look back on your racing career right now, what were some of the cool things?
I mean, I think a lot of it is like overcoming battles, you know, or like chasing yourself on the track, like wanting to become the better rider. You know, being a female, obviously the world's, you know, different now than it was, you know, how many decades ago. But, you know, I've had fights where I've actually, you know, passed a kid in a race when I was younger, and, you know, I won, but the dad said that his son won. And, you know, so I had other parents have to
Yeah.
vouch for me because I
Uh-huh.
wanted the 6-foot trophy. And, you know, it was just, you know, overcoming some of those battles and things like that. But when you look back, it's like, I see them as, you know, not just like an accomplishment, like, oh, I brought home the plastic trophy, but it's like, you know, this is cool. This is like, you know, I can do this. And next race, I want to do it again and, you know, do it again. But the coolest thing, you know, in 2012, I want to say, me and my dad traveled the East Coast and raced the GNCCs, which is the Grand National Cross Country Series. And
Yeah.
we had a little camper, and, you know, we had our moto van, and it was
Pretty cool.
just so cool to just see all these different states and these different people and, you know, different towns and things like that. And just travel with him was just so much fun. You know, from one time he went to, you know, crank the camper down, and it was on an incline, and he wanted me to hold it as it was rolling down a hill. You know, there's just,
How you supposed to hold a camper rolling roll down the hill?
my dad expects the world out of me sometimes.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, but
Wow.
it's just like those memories that, you know, you look back on and you're like, man, this
Sure.
was some crazy stuff, but I wouldn't change it
Absolutely.
for anything, you know?
You'll
No.
find that out that as your career goes on, the parents are probably the worst part of doing any sport. And Rick
Mhm.
and Larry can attest
Oh,
to
for
that.
sure.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
parents are the worst part of it because they'll
Yeah.
complain up to the moon about about the sport itself, and the children just want to go out and have
Heck,
fun. So
They
Just
still
have fun,
complain.
that's it.
In high school, they complain. You know, my son's a varsity head coach, and if something isn't right, sometimes the parents will come. And
Come
that
running
gets
down.
straightened out pretty quick, though.
Yeah.
All right, Sam. So now, and I think this is a perfect segue when you talk about how sometimes the girls get treated a little different than the guys on the racetrack. But certainly, you've overcome an awful lot to rise to parts manager, assistant parts manager. They might call you the assistant, but I pretty much know they know who the go-to person is. So
Sam and I talked
tell us-
about that before you got on here.
Yes.
You just call her the parts manager. So
yeah. So when you think about it, because state aid is very well known, you know, and up until this pandemic has hammered everybody with inventorying that, you know, you could go to state aid and pretty much pick out whatever you wanted out of whatever brand you wanted and whatever CC you wanted. That's changed now a little bit, but as a parts manager, what are the trials and tribulations, I guess, of being a female parts manager and what some would think is an all guys world, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think growing up with it, you know, racing and always, I don't want to say being that outcast, but sometimes you're the only, you know, woman or girl in that situation.
Right.
I think growing up with it, you almost become like numb to the fact, like, you know, if someone says something or they don't want to deal with you because you're a woman, things like that. It's just kind of like, whatever, dude, I'm probably going to help you in the long run anyways.
They're the
you
ones
know,
that
because
come
this dude's
back
gonna
for
need help
advice.
or, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know,
Sure.
it sounds bad. I say I'm like numb to it, but I'm just so used to being in that environment where I know that I'm in, you know, essentially a guy's world, like you said. And you just get used to it. It's like, you know, you want the right stuff. Do you want me to get it for you quick? You know, come see me. I'll help you out. But, you know, if not, go to the next guy. He'll help you out too. It's just, you know, it's
Yeah.
just a matter of the role.
What we've
Do you ever-
what we've learned real quick, Larry, what we've learned
Uh-huh.
is this is not a guy's world anymore as far as
No.
motorcycle and racing. And the guests that Larry have gotten on this show have proven. We've had a ton of women that ride across the country that are in charge of these organizations, and it's about time, because you know it gives a whole
yeah.
different perspective on the sport itself.
Oh yeah. And most people are awesome about it. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're gonna get the couple people here and there, but yeah, I mean, from times past when I talk to other women in the field that are older than me and what they had to go through, I'm like, I'm glad I never had to deal with that. You know, because it's becoming to that point where now you're seeing, you know, 10, 12 women on the line, and next week it's 24. And you know, these
Well,
groups keep growing.
You
And
look at Melissa Paris, the first woman to start the Daytona 200, you know. But I'll give you a quick story. There's a young lady, and I don't know if she's still racing, but when she was 13, her name was Elena Myers. Did you ever hear of her?
I have not.
She was a road racer, and she was an up
Okay.
and coming star. And I was doing track days down in Mid Ohio, and I wasn't that bad, you know. And I'll tell you what, she came around me and just made me look like I was sitting still, put on the brakes and went by. And then
Okay.
made matters worse, I tried to catch her, and then I targeted fixated up on Thunder Alley. And when you get up to the decreasing radius right at the top, well, I targeted fixated. And by the time I figured out it's millisecond, right? Well, when you're going 90 miles an hour, you're coming off the track. You're not going to, you got a chance, you try and make the bend, or you know you're not going to make it. So why not try and go straight and see if you can get a stop sooner or later. That's the
See
first
what
time I've
women
ever
do?
seen the corner marshals all ran. I got red flagged. I got yanked off the track. Well, I was off the track, but they wouldn't let me go back on.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it was
gosh.
pretty. Yeah, and I read about her not too long ago. I read about her. I think she has 2 kids now, but she was a rising star. But I'm going to tell you, and I'll tell you 2 things about, at least with road racing, and I'm pretty sure they're the same with dirt racing. If there's 12 guys in the race and I'm number 11 and a guy pulling up next to me is number 12 and we're both running it, we're racing. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, if you got ability and you got talent, we don't know who's under that helmet. We're just trying to win or beat you or get past you or whatever. So that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And I think that eventually helps you in the parts world, because I've seen guys, like it was almost like a oh boy minute kind of thing where, you know, they realize, oh, hey, shit, she knows what she's doing. I better just deal with her. The other guy doesn't.
Oh yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
have, and obviously I have my, you know, my customers and people that will wait for me. And I think that's just the coolest thing, because they get so used to you, and then you know how they are, what they ride already. They
Sure.
come up, you know, you already know what's going on. So it does help.
Hey Sam,
Absolutely.
where's State 8 located at? What kind of bikes do you sell
Peninsula,
there?
Ohio.
Peninsula, where's that at?
Close to like Cuyahoga Falls,
Oh,
just
okay, for that
outside
area.
Akron.
What kind
Do
of
you
bikes
take-
you sell up there?
They have Aprilia, and then Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha, and Honda.
Okay.
Aprilia.
Yep.
You know,
What's that? Just a race bike?
Yeah, they're more yeah, like sport race bikes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they had a
Oh.
couple dual sports. I think they tried those and they didn't work out too well. They just stuck with the street.
Aprilia at one time was the 250 Grand Prix champion. Let me tell you, there's 3 motorcycles out of Italy. There's Moto Guzzi. Everybody knows Ducati. And then the littler known, but still a great competitive bike is the Aprilia. So,
Boy, the Italians make a lot of bikes, huh? A lot of good
They
bikes.
do.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
sounds like. Yeah.
you know, let me
Yeah.
ask a quick question. You know, since you're in, and again, you're going to school me because I don't know a lot about the motorcycle world as far as it goes. The parts quality compared from a Penton and a Honda and all that. What is there a lot of different or better quality parts on a Penton as far as a Honda, and how does that work? You know, in your opinion?
I mean, sometimes honestly, I look at my Pentons and I think like, I wish they still did this stuff today. You
Yeah.
know, whether it's something
Right.
small, like, okay, the motor's easy to take out, or this is a quick release, you know, the axles were, you know, quick releases and things like that. So, I mean, honestly, it's crazy, but sometimes I'm like, man, I wish they kept some of these just really small things for those people that are the track people that do their own work, you know, to keep that kind of going. But I mean, as far as quality, I think most of the stuff that I've seen, you know, anymore is obviously changing, you know, where it's made, and things like that. But most of it's still been, you know, pretty solid.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, because I always think of just to, you know, I'm into the quads and all that stuff, but even the
Yeah.
Chinese brands that have the knockoffs that have come in. I mean, you can, you know, fixing my quads. I've got a Chinese brand quad, and I've got a Yamaha, and I've got a Kawasaki. But the Chinese brand, I just bought I need a brake cable, it was $6. You know, I mean,
Right.
you know, and I bought a carburetor, it's $25 when I need a Mikuni brand carburetor for my Kawasaki, it's $300. You know, it's like, have you seen that filter in sort of to compete
Absolutely.
with you? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even, you know, things like calipers are really big right now where one person buys them in China, they reproduce them and then, you know,
That's
try to
what I've been
sell them.
seeing.
But, you know, the caliper, let's say is $100 and, you know, for the original, and let's say your, you know, Chinese is 10. I always tell customers like, you know, you're going to go through 10 of the Chinese ones by the
Yeah.
time you go through the Jap one, you know, so yeah, it's nice. It's that price point if you're trying to get by, but you know, definitely going through the OEM, you know, Jap side of things, at least as what we sell, would definitely last a lot longer.
Okay. Yeah.
Are
That's,
there any Chinese bikes? You don't hear much about Chinese bikes at all. Everybody else but them.
They're everywhere.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
they,
all
they
over.
are?
They're everywhere.
The
Yeah, Rick,
Chinese bikes. Okay.
yeah, I bought one. I bought a new Chinese quad in 2004. So
What's the name of it?
and it's like a King Sun or some off
Oh yes.
Chinese brand.
King Sun.
Yeah, and I had when I first bought it, I blew out the reverse case in it, and had trouble finding it. I had to go to Columbus to get the part, and it didn't even fit. I had to actually take the take the whole everything apart to get it to fit. But anyway, now you can go up to, you know, they have these parts stores all over the place, or go on the web, and you know, you got these Chinese parts for nothing, and it's like, you know, that's got to be competing with the better brands. I'm going to be honestly, you know, because
Right.
you know, even though I can say I beat the living crap out of my Chinese quad and it's taken it. So I don't know. Yeah, I just had to ask that question because I thought it would be competing with the business of the Japanese brands and the Italian.
Absolutely. And I mean, price point too, you got people, you know, struggling, you know, just want to get something running, whatever the case may be. Of course, they want to have that inexpensive option, you know, to get them buying. I can't argue on it. You know what I mean? I don't blame people for sometimes going that less expensive route because OEM is, you know, crazy at times.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this about the Chinese, especially because I have a couple of racing pedal bikes. I used to race them and stuff. And so, you know, you hear different things in that, but China can build a quality thing. If you want a quality bicycle, they'll build you one, and it will be as good as anything out there, but it'll also be as costly as anything out there. I have found that you have to know what you're buying when it comes to, if you're going to get a little, you got like my grandson's 9, and my son picked up an Apollo 125, which there's certain ones that are a little bit better, and then there's some that aren't any good at all. And the Apollo is a little bit of a better one, but there are a couple out there. But you know, they've come a long way. But let's talk about supply chain problems right now, because the last time I was up there, and I can't remember what I bought up there, but I got something. Remember, I came up and talked to you,
Yeah.
and I was looking at the bikes and stuff, and I noted there was a couple of Aprilias, but there was some used units up there in that, but not a lot of new units. So I know that the supply chain is a problem. Tell us about that, and when do you think that's going to lighten up to? Are there going to be bikes on the showroom in March?
Yeah, it's been, I mean, especially selling things, it's like the worst thing when someone, you know, finally wants to buy something, they need it, whatever, and then, you know, you order it or you see it's on back order and it just like, you know, crushes some of these people because it's a part they need to get, you know, their actual transfer to work or whatever it may be, their workhorse, you know, rolling. And, you know, it's unfortunate, you know, it's happened for so long, unfortunately, you're almost, you know, used to it. So it's like when you see something available, I get so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually have it for you in 3 to 5 business days, sir. You know, because you're like, this is awesome. You know, so you're like more stoked, and they're like, I don't understand why you're so happy. You know, it's just a tie rod, but you know, it has affected us crazy, especially with new bikes, you know, manufacturers limiting you to what you can get, and, you know, not even be able to produce stuff to fill orders. It's the same with parts. It's just, it's so backed up. We have back orders that have been on order for over a year that people are still waiting on.
Well, it has kind of like a circuitous effect on everybody, because if you can't get a new motorcycle in, you can't have 20 sales guys, because they're not going to make any money, and they'll go get another job. So it affects a lot of different things, you know.
Absolutely.
My friend has a Suzuki, one of those Weestroms, a 650, and I helped him change out the rear wheel, but there was another part he needed, and I didn't know if it was the caliper or something in the wheel. He literally waited 2 months for that thing to come in, and it was shipped right to him in the mail. So I'm like, oh my gosh, geez.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what is out of all the parts that are kind of the supply chain problem, what's maybe one part that really sticks out in your mind that's like, I don't know if we'll ever get that back?
I would say exhausts. Exhausts are, especially aftermarket, because they use titanium and, you know, different materials. They're horrible. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I've seen like a aftermarket dirt bike exhaust in hand. You know, it's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, that's kind of scary to think about, you know, what we're getting to.
When you look at that supply chain, we were talking about new units, but look at the prices of used bikes now, you know. Some of them haven't been affected a lot, and some of them haven't, but some have, you know. How have you seen that spiraling? And do you see anything lightening up? So when a guy starts to think about Daytona, he could come in the showroom in February or early March and get a new bike. Is that going to be possible, do you think?
As far as bikes, I think, unfortunately, from what I'm hearing, we've pretty much had like all of our orders have been placed. And like we're pretty much not getting anything else until like 2023 besides what's on order.
Another year. Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy. And like tires are a really big thing, because they're having trouble.
I heard tires
the
are real
compound.
bad.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, and those are things that keep people rolling. So I know some of the production of bikes got held up because they couldn't get tires on them because they had a contract with Dunlop or Maxxis. And it's like they have these machines built with no tires, and we can't get them because of the, you know, supply chain with tires. So it's just crazy.
You know, I got Larry, I want to interrupt real quick. You know, I want to go back I wanted to come back to basics. You know, you kind of grew up in the realm of, you know, motorcycles, and you know, was that just kind of, you know, your dad was a huge influence and is a huge influence on your motorcycle craving, so to speak. Now, you know, did it start off when you were really young, and did you have other interests instead of the motorcycles that you kind of actually still follow?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was huge into cars too. Like my parents actually met because my mom had a Javelin and my dad had a Boss 302 Mustang.
The Javelin. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's like one of my dream cars is a Javelin.
Oh yeah, and she still has hers, and he still has his. So it's really cool.
Well, you know, if they ever want to sell them or even give them away, let me know.
I'll let you know. But so they always had cars. So it's always almost been like we're just a, you know, motorhead family. It's like you guys, you know, it's just like this stuff is your life. So, you know, I'd help dad, you know, hand him the 10 mil, hold the flashlight, whatever, when I was younger, you know, get yelled at, whatever. But, you know, it's always been something with the motor. We had go-karts, or, you know, my brothers would ride dirt bikes in the backyard too with me. So it's always been anything with a motor is pretty much what, you know, keeps us going. It's like same thing today. Anything with a motor, I love.
Okay. Yeah, that explained that. I just wondered if, you know, a lot of us, we have multiple interests, and some of us are just kind of, I'm like one-sided. I like anything with a motor, and that's pretty much all. You know, I just wanted to ask that question. If there's any other interests that you've got, you know, that you really like. I see, you know, we have a picture of you and your, and I think you got a dog. So
yes,
no, yeah. So
she's actually sleeping next to me right now.
Yeah, okay, so we all love dogs.
Mine
here,
is too.
So.
Mine's snoring back here. I'm over here trying not to laugh, and she's snoring like crazy.
Yeah, she's like, I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Do we have any pictures of that little Suzuki RV90? Did you send any of those?
Yeah, I sent the before and the after.
Let's
Um,
see if I can.
Greg, bring that up. Oh yeah, wait.
If I can, I see you're talking to a guy that knows absolutely nothing about motorcycles. I'm trying to
Look
find
for
it.
like a really
Is it the blue
crappy
one?
picture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little mini bike like thing.
Yep. Let me. Here it
you
is.
had the one up before, I think.
Is that it?
Yes, that's
blue
it when
one?
I
Okay.
bought it.
Yay! I did something right.
Good job.
Now tell us the story behind why you bought this.
So that was offered to me by someone I knew through the grapevine for $50.
Well, there you
Good
As
go.
you can tell, it was very worth every penny, if not less. But I got it for $50. I didn't even know what it was. I had no idea what an RV90 was, which is a Suzuki 90cc. It's a oil injected two-stroke. But I just got it and I, took it apart and there was like door hinges to hold the seat, on and off. And
That
there's
worked,
like a
didn't
rubber
it?
piece for a fender. It's, it
Uh-huh.
was horrible.
Uh-huh.
Hold on,
But I'm like, everyone deserves a second chance. So do bikes, so I'm like, well, I'll, at
That's-
least restore it.
that's the
it there.
same bike. And,
Wow.
okay, if you're listening
Nice
to podcasts,
job.
you wouldn't believe
you.
the transformation,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
restoration she did on this bike because
That's a
it's
beauty.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
gorgeous.
What's cool is the guy that bought it has it hanging in his living room.
No
That's
kidding.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say this. I saw a post on Facebook the other day. It said, "My wife asked me to decorate the living room," and he pulled his
Oh, you
dragster
wouldn't
in.
do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
he pulled his
yeah,
dragster in
yeah.
the living room. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah. I told my wife that one, and she just gave me that look like, yeah, right. That's
Yeah,
never
you-
happening.
You don't ask a car guy to do that,
No, it's going to be car memorabilia. and
Oh,
bike
you got it.
memorabilia
Yeah.
everywhere.
Put a garage
Yeah.
door in your
Dan-
living room.
Uh-huh.
How much
Ooh.
time and how much
Try.
money how much time and money did you invest in that thing? And I mean, you don't have to be specific, just about to give us our listeners that are viewing, what something like that it would be if they took a pile of. I think it paid too much at $50, but
Yes.
No way.
but
Won't
when
have
you
a
take a
penny.
look at that and then look at the art that you turned it into, that takes time, discipline, patience, and a wallet. And you don't always have all of them at once. Sometimes, like the build that Ted's doing for this guy on that Sportster's, taken a year and a half now, just
Yeah.
because of the unavailability of the parts. Sometimes they're unobtainium, you have to make them. So tell us a little bit about that labor of love.
Yeah. I would say it was around 6 months, which is crazy because I have no patience. So once I have a project, I like do everything I can to get it done like tomorrow, if not yesterday.
Right.
That comes
But
in
it
time.
was, yeah, I mean, it was probably around 5, I want to say I had in it, which is crazy because I didn't sell it for that. But to me, the
5,000?
theory was just like,
5,000?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
it was
labor
just
of
like
love.
getting that put out there. Yeah, like
Mhm.
having that
Mhm.
bike be someone's option to own one day is kind of what I wanted. But yeah, it was way too much money. I wouldn't want to do it again, and I don't plan to.
Uh-huh.
But you saved
Yeah.
one. I mean, they're not around anymore. They're not
Right.
building
No.
them. They're not around. So you got to save what you can out there.
Right, that's
instead
how
of-
I kind of looked at it.
I hate to see it was $50 when you bought it, but to part it out would have kind of broken everybody's heart,
Right.
because, you got to save that stuff now because they're not around
Right.
anymore.
And I think that's why the guy loved it so much. Like I had it in the truck. I said, "This is the amount I want." And I said, "Do you want to ride it? Anything?" He goes, "Nope, just put it in my truck." I'm like, "Okay."
Easy sale.
Boy,
Yeah, he's like, "It's
well,
going on the living room wall." I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Okay, have
Oh,
fun."
yeah, wouldn't that be nice to find
Yeah.
somebody like that all the time, huh?
Right.
Hey, Sam, how are those old bikes holding their value? Like that Penton back there. How much are those going for nowadays?
They're going up. Like
Uh-huh.
it seems like everything vintage is going up right now. Like you have more people have so much more interest, and you go to vintage events each year, they're more and more.
Right.
There's actually a Penton I want to own that is like my dream bike. Like this is on my bucket list of what I want to own, and they're going anywhere from like $4,000 to $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a lot. When usually how many years back you can get them for $1,500. It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
So, the vintage is selling now, and I guess we should all take that into effect because if we have a vintage stuff, it's time to sell, I guess, but if you want to.
Are cars the same
well-
way with you guys right now with older stuff
No,
you're seeing?
Cars are going crazy.
Okay.
You know what?
They're
I was
going
just
crazy. Yeah.
I was just watching the Mecum auction, and you know, what amazes me is some of the cars that used to go. You know, I was just watching a '57 T-Bird, and it went for 23,000, which 10, 15
That's
years
not
ago
bad.
it was 50. It was 50 grand. You know, so that's not going.
That
But then
one
I
went
saw,
down, yeah.
get
Mhm.
this, '89 Blazer, $48,000.
Oh yeah, those are crazy.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can't
Those
believe it.
4x4s,
You remember
yeah.
going to high school, you get one for $500,
And
you
how
know,
about the
the what-
Broncos?
the
The Broncos are going
Broncos.
for about
Oh, yeah.
70
Yeah,
grand.
so-
Those
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
the little, yeah, the little shorter ones. But I'll tell you what's got big value is any of the GTOs that are original GTOs, and any of the Mustangs that are like, you know, like the 69, 70, 71, the fastbacks, the ones with the Boss 302s, you know, stuff like that. Those are all, I mean, those are a lot more than a Corvette.
Mhm.
I mean, they're,
Now, Rick
I'm
and
like,
I
"Whoa."
knew, you remember, guy at KBN, he used to own a Boss 429.
Ooh.
Carey, his
Carry, yeah,
name.
yeah. Carry.
Yeah, he sold it back then, and this was Rick, what, 25 years ago, 30 years
Yeah,
ago?
about,
He put it-
yeah, about 20 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was an all
Mhm.
original 69 Mach 429, and he
Nice.
only needed the air cleaner to make it completely original. So he ended up selling it to put a down payment on his house. I just saw on Mecum auction, they're going to have a Boss 429 go on the auction block. And if you're listening, it would be this Friday. And they're looking at maybe over $500,000 for that car.
Wow.
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
that's gone up.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's, you know, the stuff, the vintage, like Sam said, the vintage stuff is climbing.
Yeah.
And it seems like it depends what it is anymore. Some of it's
Yeah.
staying, some of it's gone down, but a lot of it's just
A lot of the
starting to
muscles
skyrocket.
going up. A lot of the big
Yeah.
engine cars are going up.
I saw a
People-
Model
people
A
love
sell
that.
for 18,000.
Oh yeah. You know how many of those
Cute.
they made? They made millions and millions of
Yeah.
them. So I'm surprised
Yeah,
they got that much for it.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, that's
those things
insane.
should be, well, don't you think they would be so cool? Like, not so much the T, but maybe the Model A, the one that came after it, you know, that had
Yeah.
a lot of the improvements in that. I thought, boy, that would be kind of fun. But you know what? I don't have Greg's money or Rick's money.
Where my
Here
money
we go.
is. Don't have any
Here
of
we
that.
go. I'm
Yeah.
like, Sam, here we go.
So Sam,
Start
one of your
shuffling.
you said one of your dream bikes, you have a Penton that you want to buy. It's around $7,000. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that stands in your mind of motorcycle wise that you'd want? that you really
Honestly, I
like?
feel like everything I have right now is like, I don't want to say plenty because there's always room for more, but everything keeps me happy right now.
Yeah, good.
So if
What
I
kind of-
find that bike one day, great. I did buy, which I'm just finishing restoring right now, is a 1973 250 Penton, which is a KTM motor that we discussed. And that one is a 1-year model, which is really, really cool. So I was super happy to get my hands on that. But yeah, nothing else really besides that, like a 68.
I'm beginning to see a business model for Larry Ward. Like if Larry goes out there, everybody knows, and then they want it, like if it's 25, then it becomes 45. I think
Yeah.
what I have to do
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
give Sam the money, and then Sam says, "Oh, guys, I'm looking for another pen, maybe to help me out on that," and then I'll get one right away. Bob
Yeah.
might even sell one. Yeah,
Mhm.
here, I'll even give it to you, Sam.
Yeah.
Got to get
That's
Bob
what I gotta
involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
that'd be
Hey
good.
Sam, what kind of car you drive?
I actually bought a this year. I always drove crap boxes, I'll say.
Okay.
But I have
No
a
car
Ram
payment.
truck.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. I
Everybody's
have an
into her
05
bikes,
Ram
yeah.
that my dad bought with 12,000 miles on it. It's now got like 60, and it's beautiful. And then I bought a Lincoln MKC, like an
Okay.
SUV.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I
move
wasn't
up
gonna
now.
buy a Mustang, but I had to get talked out of it because
Oh.
too fast. I'm too fast.
You don't have to get the fast
Too
one.
fast. Wait a minute. Stop right there. Too fast?
Yeah.
Too fast. What do
I'd
you
be-
do? You're
yeah. I'd be
ride
getting in trouble.
motorcycles.
Uh-huh.
One question is, Rick and Larry and I are on the older side of the car and the motorcycles. We're always trying to get the younger generation like yourself. And,
Yes.
what suggestions do you have for them? How do you get them involved into keeping like motorcycling alive any car stuff alive, anything with a motor alive in the next or your generation coming up? What advice do you have for them?
I mean, I would say, biggest thing is if you can, afford that dream, like my dream of owning a Penton, or, if you can afford that, to just really work hard and get to that point. And once you're there, I mean, there's so many people in these groups, I'm sure like cars as well, that always have a handout that will, help you with something, or get you into the right place or the right direction or state or wherever that car, motorcycle may be. And I think once you have it and you're in those groups, I think the rest is history, just because everyone is so tight niche. And they're always willing to help each other. It's like pens. It's like I wouldn't have what I have if it wasn't for these people that really helped me out and guided me.
Right.
And I think just that group really bonds everyone together, and it's, really priceless. I mean, you can't put a price on, people helping you and guiding you.
Yeah, because
Right.
and another quick question I've got, just sitting there thinking, with even the car age, computers are just taking over. Computer wise, even Larry can jump in on this. Computer wise, electronic ignition and all that. How much advance has it gotten on these newer motorcycles? Other than the older bikes,
So
has
it's
it
crazy.
really advanced?
It's crazy. You got electronic suspension and, obviously your fuel injection, which has been around for a while, but you've got so many sensors and things like that. It's like, if you look at, my 72, obviously compared to a, 21, you're looking at a huge range, but it's almost like looking at the new bikes, it's overwhelmed because their harness is just, so long and crazy. And these old bikes, it's like you just have a coil and a, stator,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so you could actually now, school me on this. Do you have, like the cars have the OBD2 sensor, the plug hookup? Do you have a plug hookup on a bike, or do you have to actually troubleshoot if it's got sensors going bad? It's not.
Some of the newer bikes do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have sensors and they'll throw codes. Yeah, just like a car would.
Okay.
Right.
Just depending on the year, of course. But yeah, they'll have actual hookup.
All right.
And the biggest difference on a lot of the modern bikes, the high performance modern bikes, many of them will have what they call different modes to select, that will either decrease or increase horsepower or increase traction control. The last thing you want is to come out of a bend where you're pounded down from fourth down into second, like into a hairpin. You come out of the hairpin, you don't have traction control on, and you whack that throttle, you're going to break that rear tire loose and you're going to go sideways. So a lot of this stuff, ABS is a big thing. I've got a bike with ABS, only one, but I don't particularly like or dislike it. I think for a newer rider that doesn't go out and ride all the time, it's very easy to get into a situation where somebody turns left in front of you, where you're just not recognizing any danger areas and stuff like you would if you're a long time rider and you practice a lot. So I think ABS is a quality thing to have. But I think on these newer bikes, slipper clutches, they even have turbochargers, but the high performance modes that you can put it in, there's race, regular, rain, and it either increases or decreases horsepower or the power band or whatnot. So I think those are all good features to have. But I worry about that it's so tech. And Sam will tell you that when it starts throwing codes, sometimes I know on some of the Hondas that I've had that you could actually press a button and it would tell you the code. And then you'd have to either look it up or go to a dealer to find out what that code is. But a lot of times, even especially the BMWs, they have plug-in. You plug a computer into it and it tells you what's wrong. So
Okay.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I'm
Rick.
like Sam. I like the old bikes where you can just, set
Yeah.
the points and,
Mhm.
if
And
something
go.
goes bad, you can change out a $3 set of points. And it's that simple. Or you can change out a $15, $20 coil. It's that simple.
A lot
Right.
easier to troubleshoot
Oh,
Sure.
an older bike. There, if you got fire, compression, and spark, you're running. So as long as
Right.
the timing's good. So yeah, it seems to, the technology is nice in a lot of ways, but it's sort of not nice to work on
Correct.
when you have a problem.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
got a couple more minutes here. Rick, got any questions here for Sam while we got her here and got her expertise?
Sam, is there a lot of younger kids getting into motorcycle racing right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah,
Because I
we
know
actually
in the cars, like a lot of the kids are not getting into it. I just
Oh,
wondered
really?
if it was the same thing
Too
with the
ex- It's too
motorcycles.
expensive, Rick.
Yeah.
It's huge expense. It
Well,
is.
you know,
Yeah.
there is some light on that because my son is into the car realm, and he just bought, he just sold his Eclipse for what, $600. Somebody kid
Mhm.
bought it. He's going to work on it and run it. So
Mhm.
there is affordable. It's kind of like when we were younger, there was affordable cars out there, but it depends what you're looking for, I guess. So
Sam's saying that Penton's worth $7,000. I said, boy, that's not bad at all. I put that in my T-Bird every year.
Right.
Hey, where's your T-Bird at, Rick?
Oh, no.
The garage.
It's another $7,000.
Yeah, another
Yeah.
$7,000. Oh well.
Yeah, $7,000 doesn't seem a lot in the car.
No,
when
not
you're
at all.
sitting there, and you have to put parts in it. So
Mhm.
Right. But no, young kids are popping up. We actually sell,
Good.
like Striders. I don't know if you're familiar with Striders. They're like a balance bike without pedals.
Mhm.
So kids can actually like learn balance and brake control. So there's, no motor on those. They just, can kind of pedal and learn their balance. And then they actually came out with electric ones now. So
Okay.
once the kids adapt from that, they can go to a electric one and then learn throttle control. And that's really helping kids start young too, because then they can go to that small displacement dirt bike and then kind of grow from there.
okay.
Mhm.
Now, do you have if people want to check out your racing career and that, is there some place they can check see where your history is? You have
I actually want to have a website, and my goal this year is to get one.
Okay.
So nothing at the moment. I'm on
Okay.
like social media and things like that, but I do want to have a website actually, and I make some crafty stuff, maybe sell some things and stuff like that.
Excellent.
Crafty.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that.
Shock lamps, fun stuff.
Yeah. Again, we're talking with Samantha Vallish. She is legend in her own time right now because
Oh,
she
gosh.
is a motorcycle racer, state aid motorcycles assistant parts manager, and we're honored to have you. Schooled me in so much stuff, I mean, that I never really thought about as far in Penton. I'm going to be honest with you, I never heard of a Penton until today.
When I
Yeah,
first
'cause-
started when I was racing back in the 70s, the Pentons were really big. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And when I saw
Yeah.
a Penton, I go,
Best
wow.
racers.
of course, I'm lucky to have heard of a Honda motorcycle at this point in my life, because
There you go.
my son just sold a Buell, so that's was I was like, oh, a Buell, and finally I got schooled on that, and especially if you're want to know more about a Buell motorcycle, check out the Packard motorcycle show we're going to air. That was what was featured was Eric Buell's our personal motorcycle down at the Packard Museum. You can go see that show at the Packard National Museum in Warren, Ohio, and actually see they've put 34 bikes on display. And I'm going to tell you, like I said, I'm not really, follow bikes too much, but amazing the older stuff they have down there.
Oh yeah. Some of those things are over 100 years old.
Oh no, unbelievable.
09, one was a 10. Yeah.
And Rick and Sam, you can attest to seeing how they had to run those things. Larry, yeah, you have to use a plunger for oil and this and that and do this
Yeah.
to get to go 10 feet down the road. Got to kickstart this,
Right.
and, it's starting to clatter or whatever. Put a pump of
Yeah.
oil in, and I'm like, oh my god,
You need a carbon rock to do the light on it. Remember that one? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Amazing. And
Mhm.
they that was high tech then. And it's like,
Yeah.
nobody would touch that right now.
No.
I'll just go down the road and grab my motorcycle, but it's going to take me 10 minutes to get it running. No. So
It sure is neat to see though. It's
Yeah.
really
it's really
special.
cool.
yeah.
See, we're spoiled by all these modern bikes. I mean, if you just change the oil, and a lot of guys don't even change it regularly, but I mean, all of the bikes now are dependable. Back in the day when I had a 69 XLCH, a kickstart Sportster that nobody would ever call a girl's bike because that thing would kill you, But I'll tell you what, you'd work on it for 2 hours to ride it 1 hour. And then
Yeah.
when you rode it, you took some Loctite and some mechanics wire with you. And there's always something vibing off in that. But Sam, let me ask this, because I know we're getting close to closing the show out in that. But where is Sam Vallish going in 2022, both professionally in her career as a motorcyclist and also as a parts manager at State 8? What's going on?
Definitely riding a lot. Last
There you
year,
go.
being a newer homeowner, not as much time to ride and things like that, and it was kind of put on the back burner. So this year, I mean, my true goal is, go more places, ride more. I think my new bike has 3 hours on it, and that's been a year, so it's just sad. It's like you want to put more hours on the bike,
I know.
And things like that, but definitely do like events like Mid-Ohio and race vintage days there. That's a big one on the list. And, just do more Penton oriented things and kind of get that brand still out a little bit more. And then of course, just, ride my modern bike, and, hit more trails and a couple races maybe here and there. And just keep working and, taking care of the, most people I can and getting them on the road or the trails and, just keep pushing forward in that sense.
I'm going to try, it's called the SOTOT, SOTOT, Southern Ohio Trans-Ohio Trail. So I'm going to take the Himalayan. I literally only have 450 miles on that thing, and I've bought it months ago. So I'm like you, I don't know, busy. But I'm going to try that with Ted Guthrie. He's going to school me on how not to get hurt riding off-road. Maybe I'll get some tips from you too.
I love
Well,
Ted.
yeah, I'm really
Well, so
bad.
when Rick and I are just doing the show after you get hurt, and you're gonna be on gas,
breaks
right,
his neck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful, Larry.
Uh-huh.
Believe
But-
me, I get scared to death. I did a couple of trials events, and they called me the one section wonder. A section is like 10 different events, 10 different little things you have to do. And a section is like, there's 10 sections. Well, I managed to complete one section and damn near killed somebody. I come up a hill too fast at the finish line and flew that bike up in the air. And then when I landed, that wasn't good either. And then they took a bunch of pictures, and Bob Wenzel goes, I don't believe it. I'm like a national observed trial champion. You go through one section, almost kill somebody, and they do a whole article about you in the Penton newsletter. And I go,
You know what? I could just see this picture. You have Sam's picture of her, in the air, and you have Larry's picture of him in the air like this, trying to hang on. So
It's the
Everyone's
crazy
right.
ones that get all the attention. You know that.
Yeah.
well, I had to go take a shower and go to the bathroom after that.
well,
Which one
you're
was
welcome.
first? No.
If you go up to State 8 Motorcycles, you want to get some advice and some parts from Samantha Vallish, we're welcome to have her here. And this is a Street Scene Power Hour. You can listen to us on the Buzzsprout podcast, and then check out the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel YouTube page. And for Larry Ward, Rick Guerrera, my name's Greg Roten. We'll see you
Down the
down the
road.
road.